Welcome to Windows on the World, and we've got some interesting information for you tonight. There's a lot happening, and we're getting good information coming from all over the country. We seem to have developed an interesting network of people, and people who are actually very switched on to what is going on, which is what I always thought was the aim of this show, really, because when we started doing it years ago, this was before we went to the People's Voice. I was getting information from people and we were acting on it and getting some results. And what's happened since is that we've found that, especially like local authorities, are taking more and more liberties. I was just looking at some of the earlier correspondence we'd had because I've been looking into the corruption within local councils for quite a long time. But together with their partner organisations, and indeed organisations which go way beyond what I thought was possible even 5 years ago. In other words, these partner corporations that they link up with, basically to surveil the public and gather data, has gone to a completely different level. And we've talked about the 5G rollout and the importance of that and what's going on with it. We had Mark Steele on a few weeks ago, and he's got a YouTube channel called Mark Anthony, which is well worth looking at. And that shows you what these 5G devices that they're putting into lampposts really look like. And no, they're not there for just switching the lights on and off and controlling LEDs. So we have to ask ourselves, what are these people in local authority doing? Because they make decisions on our behalf. And we had all this years ago, going through the kind of dysfunction of council tax. And that's really where a lot of us woke up to what was actually happening in these very remote buildings called town halls. And even till a few years ago, you could actually go in and get some kind of response. But now they seem to have shut the public out. And we're finding that the arrogance is on a completely different level. And just to start the show off, I get sent stuff from all over the place. And there's a lady over in North East London who sends me a very interesting and expansive compilation of newspaper headlines from local papers and some from national papers. And it always ties into what we've been talking about. So the very funny thing about this is that there was an advert came out last year for Waltham Forest Council looking for corporate anti-fraud team manager, a corporate anti-fraud team manager for the internal fraud investigations. Now, very shortly after this person was appointed, 13 cases of fraud involving its own staff or partners between April 2017 and January 2018, and this person was appointed just after April 2017, were found. So that's 13 cases of fraud involving its own staff. And it was also found that Waltham Forest, which is an area of northeast London, along with other councils, I've been doing some research into this today, they constantly are breaching their own data protection laws. For instance, private consultants Agilis noted the council is currently not compliant with data protection regulations. Personal information was wrongly disclosed 18 times. Emails were sent to the wrong persons 5 times. And this is sensitive information that could be potentially damaging for the people who have had their data breached. Now, in 2017, 39 local employees and partner investigated. That's right, partner firms investigated for failing to protect information. And this is another thing. This is a national statistic. 76% of local authorities have experienced a range of cyber attacks and data breaches in the last 12 months, according to an iGov survey. The Information Commissioner fined Nottinghamshire County Council £70,000 for leaving elderly and disabled residents' data, including addresses, open on their website. which has included visits to their homes. So it was all the times that they'd visited as well, what was wrong with these people, and if they had dementia or not. So, so basically leaving them open to be robbed. Um, and the Information Commissioner said it was a serious and prolonged breach of the law. Newcastle County Council will find £500,000. Now, this is another thing. Where's this 500 grand and 70 grand coming from that these people, these councils have been fined? Well, it's actually coming from the council taxpayer. So you're paying for the data breaches and basically the internal incompetence of your local council. So Newcastle County Council will find £500,000 in names, addresses and birth dates, plus information on thousands of children and their adoptive parents. Now, of course, councils describe themselves as corporate parents because they're very keen to take people's children off them. That's a huge business, and that was exposed several years ago. It's quite shocking, really, when you look into that one. But where all this is leading is going to be sort of revealed it in the show tonight, because I found something that was truly shocking, and we'll get onto that a little bit later. But first of all, I'm going to ask if Tony's there. Are you there, Tony?
Yeah, I'm here, Mark.
I thought I'd do a little ramble to start with, because I've just been generally looking at this stuff today, and it took me back in time to when I challenged my local authority in court, and the incompetence and the fraud that was going on then. But things have got to a different level now. And I know you've had experience of this, haven't you, Tony, with your local council?
Yeah, I've had plenty of experience with them, and more to come, I fear, sometime very soon.
Okay. Is it something you can divulge, or is it something that's ongoing and you want to reveal at a later date?
Probably better off doing it later. I need to run it by you. I need to. I've got a couple of calls that I made. I did promise Eric, actually, if he emailed me, that I would send him one. I think it was Eric, someone in the chat did, but I didn't receive an email. But yeah, we'll get into it at some point.
Well, that's funny, because just before the show, I was going to download a video. I didn't have time. It was one of ours from Land of the Free, our YouTube channel, previous YouTube channel, Land of the Free, which is still there. And it's me phoning up the council and accusing them of fraud, and they're taking down all the details. But little did I know that Waltham Forest Council, their own internal investigation, was going to discover that there was indeed massive fraud internally there years later. So nothing's really changed.
No.
But the thing is that there's a few things I wanted to announce as well, because we've had a couple of strikes on YouTube, and we've been talking about this over the past year, that our days on YouTube are probably going to be numbered, because we're picking up a lot of people there. Lots and lots of people are subscribing to it. And our mini Ice Age videos had nearly 20,000 views in just over a week. And a lot of the back catalogue there is getting looked at as well. And that's incredible, really, because YouTube seem to be burying a lot of the older stuff. You can't really find it. It's also something that I've noticed when I'm looking for other people's stuff. It seems to have filtered a lot of things out. You seem to be getting a sort of generic search now, whereas previously you'd get stuff that was kind of connected and very interesting, but they seem to have narrowed all the searches or the related videos. And I think it's time to get off that. In fact, I think it's time to get off a lot of these platforms. I mean, this Spreaker that we're using, I think is very good. And please subscribe to it, because I've had strikes on YouTube this week. Now, I got a notification of a community guidelines strike, and it was on a video called Amazon Bans Sandy Hook book, as Jim Fetzer book about Sandy Hook. Now, that was banned from Amazon, and we did a show about it. Well, not only was that banned from Amazon, but hundreds of books were banned from Amazon. All of the stuff by Castle Hill Publishing is gone. There's many, many books that I don't know the titles of that have been banned, and hundreds that I've looked at that we actually put up on the website. So the YouTube have decided to give this a community strike. Now, they don't seem to be able to be contactable. It's rather strange, because usually you can reply back to them. But they seem to have made that very difficult as well. So I went through everything trying to reply to them, and I couldn't do it. And I did eventually get a reply sent, no response to that whatsoever, because I want to know which community guidelines we've breached, because I've read their community guidelines, and anyone who's read them will know they're absolutely woolly, and they don't really define anything. There's nothing really defined in there. So in other words, they can just take down anything they want, which of course is the idea, because this is the whole point of Google and what it's about. But following that, I got another strike on the same video. Now, these community strikes last for 3 months, and they take the video down. They don't ask you. They just took it down. And I get another strike for a misleading thumbnail. Now, on this show, you get 3 thumbnails. Anyone who's uploaded a YouTube video will know that in the editing section, you get 3 thumbnail prints. Now, because this was a radio interview, 2 of them were the same. There was a picture of the book that Jim Fetzer had written and a picture of him. And the only other picture in it was from the beginning of the video, from the intro, which was Jeremy Corbyn saying thanks to Windows on the World, which we used as an intro until recently, because obviously we don't put it on the radio show. But what they've done is, or what I've done perfectly innocently, is I haven't bothered choosing a thumbnail. So the thumbnail that's been chosen is a picture of Jeremy Corbyn. Now, that could be construed as misleading. There's no doubt about that. But the point is, it's not a thumbnail that I've uploaded to mislead anybody. It's part of the video. So that means that they can do it on any video. So I've got into a position of, well, a situation with the whole thing that I'm now thinking, well, YouTube may be gone soon. So I'm conditioning myself to think that. Now, a friend of ours, Martin, has sent me a data drive here, which I've got in my hand. It's a tiny little 128 gig thing. And Martin, I am going to send you all of our stuff. It's just that I haven't had time to do it yet. But people had offered to re-upload the videos on different platforms. I think it's a great idea. And it's going to be a terrible blow for us if YouTube gets taken down, because most of the videos linked to Windows on the World are YouTube videos. So that's going to be a massive job in itself. So I'm sort of bracing myself here. But it's made me think really about what we're doing. And because we have such a high quality information coming through, people are sending some great stuff in about what's going on locally, and they're really switched on. We don't get any people who are sending us absolute conspiracy nut stuff, apart from people who are trying to basically discredit people that we've had on or upset us. We get a few of those every now and again, but that's always happened. But what I'm finding is the quality of information that's coming through from people is absolutely stunning. It's well researched. It's concise. We have people in lots of different countries now. And so we're forming a kind of society. But it's an invisible society, and that's the best society to have. And that's going to bring us on to what we're going to be talking about tonight as well. But first of all, we have some talks coming up this year. I'm going to be attending several festivals, and we've got a special Windows on the World Day in Glastonbury with Piers Corbyn and one other speaker, and we're going to have some entertainment there. We're going to do it on I think it's the Saturday, 16th of June, and it's down in Glastonbury, a brilliant pub. So if you would like to register your interest, email me, and I will give you the details. It's not going to be expensive. We're going to cover our costs, and we're going to have a good day. And it's in a brilliant venue in Glastonbury, and it should be a fantastic event. And this is what I think is much more fun, because if we're getting shut down on these media platforms, then in actual fact, the information that's conveyed at these events and the people that you meet are often more important. I think it's great that we've managed to get out so much with no publicity, because we don't get any publicity at all. We only get people who listen to the show recommending it or passing it on. So big thanks to that. And we've plodded on pretty slowly and successfully for quite some time. we're not major out there, but we're not minor either. I find that when I go to different parts of the country, there are people who know what we're doing. And as I said earlier, they're sensible, which is great. And also, I want to get into doing some historical walks this year. And if people are interested in coming along to any of those, I'm going to be doing some in the City of London. We're working on a documentary at the moment, which I will be putting a trailer out in a few weeks. So keep your eye out for that. And yeah, I want to expand things a bit and basically stop this reliance on things like YouTube. I mean, it's a shame really because we are getting a lot of traction on there, but I don't want to be terribly disappointed when it all disappears. So I think that's an important point to make at the start of the show. Now, you warned me about this as well, Tony, but I knew it was coming, so it's probably no surprise to you, is it?
No surprise at all. The only surprise, as I said to you in the week, is that it's taken so long to get round to you, really. But, people should start voting with their feet right now. I started some time ago. I no longer use YouTube as my go-to place for, just finding something to get on with, something new. I look in other places now instead, although it's still really hard to get away from it because it is that, it's that popular. And I see the same thing happening to others as well. Unless we actually address the macro issue at the top that's causing all of these problems, we're going to keep having to run and hide more or less, and keep building new echo chambers. And like you said, we rely totally on the public, the listener support, and their getting the word around about what we're doing here so that people can come and find it. And we would encourage them to mostly use the website, and we're going to have to be doing things in a different way from here on. Funny enough, I was talking to Wolfie, who runs Chris Spivey's server, a couple of days ago, and he's got a few problems that might make an interesting show, but he's the man that put me in touch with the Icelandic people, and that where you've got some room to manoeuvre out there, which is where I do see us ending up going. And the reason for stating it again is we will need public support to do that, because we don't do this for the love of it. We could probably find a lot better things to do on a nice Sunday evening. We do this for everyone, not for ourselves. There's no money in it. And if we don't get the money to pay for the services that we need to provide to get the information out there from you, then there's no one else, where else for it to come from. So it's as simple as that. And some people out there, you might want to support me in my web design, and that money that I get from that comes into Windows on the World and helps to rebuild the site, keep it going, and do the things that we're doing. So we do need your support.
Oh, yeah, Tony. I mean, whenever I used to put any kind of appeal out, I mean, I know the People's Voice went completely pear-shaped, and of course, that was a real shame and bad management in many ways. But the point was that I enthusiastically campaigned for money for that. But if we had anything like a tenth or even 100th of what the public had given to that, we'd be laughing really, because we'd be able just to keep things trundling along. But I mean, I get probably about 20 quid's worth of donations a month, and it costs me a lot of money to do this. And the only reason I can do it is because I actually moved out of where I was living and decided to live very, very cheaply. And I've kind of been counting my pennies and putting everything back into this, which I'm not asking for any sympathy or anything like that. But the point is that it would be good if we could find sponsors. And I did ask a while ago if there was any small businesses who would like to get involved. Now, it's very difficult for businesses to get involved in anything like this because the mainstream slaughters them if they do. But there's all of these awful organizations set up to demonize businesses now who they think are politically incorrect, stop the hate and all this nonsense, even having to go at the Daily Mail. So maybe there's time for a bit of a counter-revolution for people with a brain cell to get out of this extreme ideology that we're being pushed into, because we've been dealing with this for a long time, and the narrative that's being controlled is being destroyed. I mean, all of this stuff that's happened with Syria, it's great because BBC and Sky News have been getting people on who've been destroying this fantasy story about the chemical attack and showing people what it actually is. They got this fella, Ian 56 onto Sky, and the BBC had described, or the government had described him. It was the government who described him as a Russian bot. And this is absolutely ridiculous, but it's called British intelligence. But I'm wondering if there's any left, because I've never known anything as pathetic as this. And you just see it all over the place. And you've got Theresa May coming out with these absurd statements. I mean, obviously, her husband's very much involved in the military industrial complex and all the rest of it, but that's still no excuse. I mean, this person should be maybe running I could see her selling kind of homemade jam in a village hall, but putting her up there as though she runs a country is stretching it a little bit, in my opinion. But yeah, this whole thing of the way things have been manufactured into this consensus reality, and we've covered it all the time for so long, but there's so many different aspects of it. And of course, we're going to get into that tonight as well. But the thing is, there must be people out there who think like us, and of course there are. But what they don't do is get organised. And I think we're pretty organised. And when we put my mind to something with getting information out, we actually have a very big effect. And I've had a very big effect on things over the years in what's going on in the background, because often things don't actually change in front of you. They change behind the scenes, and we're going to get into that tonight. Years ago, I took my local council to court, and they sent out a form, which they've now stopped sending out because of my court case. I know it was because of my court case, because somebody within the council actually told me what had happened. And basically, they were sending out a form from a third party called Data Tank. And Data Tank is basically a data mining company. So they were getting you to sign a contract with a third party data mining company. And the council lied about where the form was going. It said on the council website and telephone line, which referred to this discount form, which is basically the form that you have to send to the council every year, but in a different form. In other words, the original idea of it is that you send in a declaration you're the sole occupant of a property to get your 25% discount. Now, that used to be just a council document, and then they introduced a data mining company who not only wanted your personal data, and the council were passing it on to them because this data mining company had been working with the council to find out if any third-party mail was going to your address. Now, many people have third-party mail going to their address. Many people live in multi-occupancy houses, or they move around a lot. It's not uncommon in London. So this starts to get a paper trail, and they go, oh, this person could be with somebody else there. There might be somebody else living with them. There might be other parties there. And so what they do is, if you can't prove that you're the sole occupant, they can then say that we're taking your discount away. And that's what they did with me. They took away my 25% discount on the back of an assumption. Right? Now, it's quite funny because I looked at all this paperwork, and it's a shame, really, because the website it was on, landofthefree.co.uk, got taken down some time ago. It was run by a friend of mine who actually, he had some problems and forgot to renew it, and it went. But the point is, I've got everything downloaded from it. And there was a lot of paperwork on this, and it tied in to all of the third parties that councils are involved with, including Newlyn debt collectors, because they were in on it as well. I accused them of fraud, and it all turned rather comedic, because what they'd done is taken away my 25% discount. So I went to the magistrates court when I got summoned for council tax for non-payment. I said, well, I'm not refusing to pay it, but they've taken away my discount on the back of basically an assumption that's not true. I said, I'm still a sole occupant. I've given them a statutory declaration to state that I'm a sole occupant, but this form creates fraud. It's with a third party, and this third party is saying that they can fine you if you don't fill it in. Well, only courts can issue fines, so they can't fine you. A private company can't fine you, especially when you've got no contract or agreement with them. So the whole thing was creating a fraud, and I proved it. And that form was getting sent to everybody in the country by different data companies. Now it's gone. I looked earlier on, and if anyone is still getting one out there or has had one, refer to this information now. Email me, and I'll send you the information that you need to know, because you do not have to fill that form in as long as you supply the evidence that the council requires directly to the council. And that's what we did in court, because the judge said if I photocopy one side of the form, in other words, the side of the form which says it's a council form, because the other side of the form had basically a third party agreement on it, which was purporting to be a council document. So it had a barcode on it from the company. So basically you've got the head of revenues and benefits name on it, stating it's a council document, which is a fraud. And the funny thing was, when I reported it to the council, said, this is a fraud. This fella's signed this form, but it's not from him. It's from Data Tank in Nottingham. And they said, well, he left a year ago anyway. So he wasn't even the head of revenues and benefits. So the whole thing was a scam and a joke. But it got taken down, and I don't think they're using it anymore. But that's a small victory. You know, the judge saw my side of it and said he didn't agree to the fraud because they don't want to do that, because they don't want to make it a criminal case. But he agreed with my position, and the council were made to accept my signing one side of the form and giving it direct to them, which cut out the third party and the controversy. And there was nothing the council could do about it. They couldn't come back and say they're going to refuse my information. And of course, they had to reinstate the 25% discount. Small and petty victory, but uncovered the bigger picture of what's going on, because Newlyn debt collectors then went after this debt as though it was real. And we all know how that works. I think most people now do know how it works, because it's been revealed over the years that the council issue the summons. It's not a court document. It's all done in-house, and then they give it to Newlyn, who are debt collectors. They're not really bailiffs. They have the powers of bailiffs, or they assume they have the powers of bailiffs, but that's another issue. And you can't believe what you see on these bailiff programs on TV. But basically, these people will loot your property if they can. Now, what was interesting was that on the Newlyn paperwork that came to me, it said credit reference number. Now, credit union reference number. Now, I've never been in Waltham Forest Credit Union. So what I think they're actually doing is trading these council tax accounts as bonds. Now, they got caught for doing all this years ago. It's about the time when they'd invested a load of money in Iceland. That was all found out that they had these offshore funds, and they were creating these investments overseas. They're not meant to be doing that with your money, but because you're a council taxpayer, you are there indemnified, because they know that you're going to pay the council tax, and they have it built in that certain people will default. That's built into the plan. So when they invest these bonds, create these bonds out of council tax numbers, it's totally underwritten and indemnified. So it all makes sense that they would do that. I just didn't realize that these credit unions were doing it. Now, I haven't got absolute proof that they are, but I can only assume from that slip that Newlyn made that it's a strong possibility. Does this make any sense to you, Tony?
Yeah, a little. I think our friend Unique Lee might be able to add some light to this at some point. We'll talk to him about it in a week.
Yeah. Well, those are just a few things. I mean, I think that's what councils are doing. They are creating these bonds out of council tax numbers. It's highly possible that that's what they're doing because I've not got a credit union reference. I'm not in a credit union, the Waltham Forest Credit Union at all. That's quite an interesting little coda to that. But it takes us on to something else that we had quite a victory with, which was Crimestoppers. Now, there is a video, there's several videos we've done on this, and if you haven't seen them or heard them, it's well worth a listen. There's one called We Made Most Wanted Criminals Disappear. It's on the facing page of the Windows on the World website. But there's another one about crime farming, which is in Windows Picks on windowsontheworld.net, top left-hand corner. And it's about a case that we reported. A friend of mine got accused of an assault, and Kent police assaulted me when I tried to give evidence. My evidence was blocked twice. They destroyed evidence, basically perverted the course of justice. And I called it crime farming because they escalated something that happened to my friend into a very serious case, the repercussions of which are still going on. But the amazing thing about this was that she got put on Crimestoppers Most Wanted. Now, I didn't think this was possible because she wasn't wanted. But if the police issue a bail warrant or you fail to turn up at a police station, they can put you on Most Wanted, which is absolutely ludicrous because even when a court's involved, and this was to do with the court, and it was about an appearance in court, but her lawyer was there and she was in another foreign country and she was visiting her grandparents. But the only conditions of bail were that she wouldn't contact the prosecution witnesses. So it being in a foreign country was perfect because she couldn't. So it was fulfilling all her bail conditions to be in a foreign country. This was all explained to the court, Maidstone Crown Court. And next thing is, she's on Crimestoppers. We couldn't get her off. The arrogance of Kent police is unbelievable. The lawyer said, I'm rather concerned to see my client, a woman of previous good character, as a most wanted criminal. The upshot of it all was that we found out that Kent police put the pictures on Crimestoppers, just upload them for the police. But there's meant to be consideration before those pictures go up. In other words, is this going to be prejudicial? Is it going to prejudice the public against the trial? And of course it is. If you see yourself on Most Wanted and it's for violence, well, the public are going to think you're a violent criminal. So what we got back was an email from Kent Wanted Persons Bureau, from Spencer Duffy, who's now left, which you can see if you look at that article on Windows on the World. All the correspondence is there, and it's pretty shocking. The lawyer said, well, what mitigating circumstances are there in this as far as prejudice of a jury trial goes? And Kent Police wrote back, go to kentpolice.co.uk, and that's to the lawyer. And all that's in those videos. Well worth a listen. However, we couldn't do anything about it. This person was on Crimestoppers, and she was on page 1 of Kent Crimestoppers, it's Most Wanted. And Kent Most Wanted had 38 pages of people on, with 16 on each page, of 480, I think. National database, about 48, 50 pages, the same. So I emailed the Chair of Trustees of Crimestoppers, Lord Ashcroft, with my concerns, and that was on the Friday last November. I think it was 23rd. Oh, that's right, yeah, 19th, I think it was. But by the 23rd, the Monday, I'd spoken to Crimestoppers media department, a fella called Dominic, who's now actually resigned from Crimestoppers or left. And he was extremely concerned when I told him about what had happened. And obviously, the people there don't realise what's going on. So on the Monday, he sent me an email and he said, hi, Mark, you may want to check Crimestoppers Most Wanted pages, particularly the the ones for Kent. So I went on to Kent Crimestoppers Most Wanted page, and there was one person left, wasn't there, Tony? Do you remember that?
Yep, I remember. You did a good job.
And you got a screenshot of it, didn't you?
I did.
And we've still got that screenshot. There's one person who was left out of 38 pages of 16 people on each page. One person left. And he wasn't wanted by Kent police. He was wanted by Devon and Cornwall police, but believed to be somewhere in Kent. Now, those pages started to creep up again to 4 pages in Kent. They're back to 1 again now. And the national database is down to 10 pages from nearly 50. So what it appears is that Crimestoppers does not really have a function anymore. Its cover story has been taken away. And the reason I say it's a cover story is because of what we've found out. Now, we're talking about surveillance with local councils. We've talked about the prevent strategy, which is all about finding people vulnerable to extremism in the community and basically getting them up in front of a panel with the council and the police. And are the council competent to be doing this? I don't think so. I don't think my local council are competent to be judging whether I'm some kind of extremist or not, because they are absolutely programmed and brainwashed by diversity program and political correctness. And they also slavishly listen to what's coming out of the media, which is coming from MI5, about the so-called far right, which is another thing that doesn't exist, right? You can do loads of research into this and you'll find out it doesn't exist. So MI5 have sold the BBC and the media a pup. And what it is, it's a decoy to take your mind away from what's really going on. But we're not that stupid. So you've got these people who are working for foreign lobby groups like Katie Hopkins. There's another one called Pat Condell, and there's one called David Vance. And they're always tweeting this stuff. Basically what they're doing is they're getting Christians to attack Muslims for an interested third party, which they work for. And you will find that is absolutely true if you listen to what they say and look at what they are actually doing. So this narrative is so blatant and stupid. And somebody sent me something today, which was about the BBC had always had a history of being in cahoots with MI5. And ironically, previously, it was about the threat of the left. Now, what's really funny about it is that it's kind of the paradigm's totally changed. So in other words, the old-fashioned left is now the new big threat, which is Corbyn. So whereas Corbyn was like, oh my God, the old-fashioned left, now he's kind of not really the old-fashioned left, because the people who claim to be left are basically accusing him of being right-wing. And the same as his brother Piers, they get labelled, like Piers gets labelled right-wing now. So it's kind of, the whole thing is absolutely absurd. And so you've got this narrative that's going through everything. And your local council and this prevent strategy are all part of it. And that's where it starts to get really interesting now. I'm tying it all together because Crimestoppers does not have a function and partners with different companies. They also have something called fearless.org, which is basically about getting children to snitch on people. And the thing about Crimestoppers, which I think most people don't know, is that it gives rewards anonymously through its partnered banks. Yeah, it has partnered banks. You can read it on there. They have special banks that they're partnered with in different areas of the country. And they have representatives in different areas of the country, around 12 in each Crimestoppers area. These unelected people or volunteers or whoever they are, because Crimestoppers is a charity and it employs lots of volunteers. Now, if you have information, say I've got some information, I'm a nosy neighbour and I don't like somebody, I can phone up Crimestoppers and make an allegation against somebody. They will never know it's me, and Crimestoppers will never tell them, and the police will never tell them. However, the police will then take that intelligence and try to build a case around it. Now, what could possibly go wrong here? Because as soon as the police get their hands on something, they will build a case around it. That's what their job is. And then they will try and present it to the CPS. So this is what happens if you're a snitch to Crime Stoppers. They reward anonymous individuals who report anonymously about persons who will never know who implicated them. And the rewards, about £1,000 for shopping somebody, are given through interfacing with local Crime Stoppers representatives. And then those local representatives go to one of their partner banks and they arrange with that bank for you to pick up basically a brown envelope in that bank. So there's no trace of any of the money. Now, I think there's something fundamentally flawed in this approach because it's really like a form of organized crime. What is the difference between that and protection money or anything else? Because they're asking people for information that they're not going to verify. They're just going to pass it on to the police so the police can build a case. And when someone's arrested, the police will build a narrative around it. So this is what I think Crime Stoppers is up to. But I found out something even more shocking recently. Crime Stoppers is partnered with a company called ESRI. And what they are about is military industrial complex type surveillance and data mapping. Now, we talked about the 5G rollout, and this is where it ties in with the councils, because these councils are now going to be part of this information grid. And I've just outlined their data breaches have been absolutely appalling. Their information is routinely hacked. If you look it up, look this up, don't take my word for it, and look how many councils have been hacked into. So, Crime Stoppers, which is tied in to your local council and your local police, by the way, and of course the prevent strategy and all the rest of it, is partnered with ESRI. And one of their services is Geographical Information Systems, right? GIS. It's a framework for gathering, managing, and analyzing data rooted in the science of geography, spatial location, and it organizes layers of information into visualization using maps and 3D scenes, deeper insights into data such as patterns, relationships, helping users make smarter decisions. GIS technology applies geographic science with tools for understanding and collaboration. It helps people reach a common goal, to gain action and the intelligence from all types of data. Now, I've been looking at their website and I sent it to a friend of mine and she was horrified, and she's not the sort of person who's in any way naive about this stuff. But we're going to a different level here. This is the military industrial complex mapping everything about you. Smart maps and analysis of to advance government. This is from their website, esri.com. Governments collect and manage vast amounts of data, all tied to location, maps, and spatial analysis. They quickly make sense of it so it's easier to use. Making data-driven decisions that improve quality of life is essential. To improve the quality of life is essential in national, state, and local government. ArcGIS software makes it possible. Rapid data collection, simplify on any device, smartphones, drones. You've got to remember, these are apps. These are actually apps that people can download. Internet of Things, sensors, multiple databases, or any online public data repository. Share maps and analyze security with staff or citizens to support smart initiatives. Synchronize first responders with time status data and maps. It does everything. So what we're going into here is the Internet of Things, which is now partnered with Crime Stoppers. Now, I don't believe Crime Stoppers has a function anymore because we've reduced it to basically nothing. And if you look on Crime Stoppers, it's mainly people with bail warrants. There's a few people who maybe it says murder. But the point is, these are not actual proven crimes half the time. Most of these people are wanted for questioning or in connection with something, or because they've missed a bail appearance or a court appearance. But mostly what this seems to be about to me is government collecting data, because most of the people on Most Wanted Crime Stoppers are now Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. They're people who are alleged to owe VAT and tax, alleged to owe it, and also confiscation orders. So Crime Stoppers is being used by the government to loot people. It says things like, this guy has had all his assets stolen, but we reckon he's still got $1.5 million. So if you see him, let us know. You'll get a huge reward, and we can take the rest of his estate. That's what this is about. And we cannot trust any of these organisations. I've already proved that Crime Stoppers was not doing its job properly, because Lord Ashcroft pulled everybody off there. He's the chair of trustees. And that's had a massive effect. And again, gets back to my first point, that with the people out there, the stuff that they can do is beyond what they probably think they can do. Because once you go to a higher level with this stuff, then you're in a totally different ball game. Don't be dealing with these petty minions in the council. Go above their heads, because they are the trained useful idiots. Oh, you got the useful idiot jingle, Tony?
Have I got the useful idiot jingle? Probably, but I'm not sure where.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I just wondered if you were going to throw it in, because you did once in a really inopportune place, actually, which was quite funny.
Yeah, I done you and Piers with it, I think.
That was right, yes.
Week before last, but I'm trying to keep up with the chat here. It's on fire, so well done.
Oh, is it? Well, I'm kind of having a bit of a rant here, but the thing is that I'm so shocked at what I've found here, because it's way beyond what I thought anyone would admit to.
Yep.
So these are funding Crime Stoppers, okay? They're funding Crime Stoppers. ESRI.com. Go and have a look. And this is the Internet of Things. This is smart grid technology. This is the whole 5G thing. This is mass surveillance. This is mapping your home. This is mapping everything. They're basically saying that they can actually get into all of this data, and they know your number plate. They can watch you. It links into everything, the whole surveillance grid.
Yeah, they're building a complete virtual world, basically, of any aspect of big data that they've gathered that they desire, and putting it into apps for anyone who wants to buy them. So it's very concerning.
Well, it's very concerning. I'll get to something else in a little while, which is hugely concerning, because there's something else that I found out about this company, and they're hinting at what they are capable of doing for governments. And basically, reading between the lines, I would say it's about being able to control and shut down areas through panic and through the fear of biological attacks. They're actually saying that. And what they're implying is that these things can be used to fulfill an agenda. That's what I'm reading through it, only because of what I know about vaccination and how that's been used. So I can point to examples there. But I think this, to me, looks like it could be used for very nefarious purposes. Now, I'm not saying that the company are nefarious at all. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when this stuff gets into the wrong hands, it can be easily manipulated. And they themselves talk about data manipulation. If you look on the website, they talk about data manipulation.
Again, that's what they're there. Yeah. It's another double-edged sword, isn't it? It can be used for a lot of good things. I've seen some of the environmental stuff that they've made maps for and that, and no one could really argue with that. But this is prying far too far into the private lives of people, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it absolutely is. I'll go through their slideshow in a little while. But basically, if you tie this into all these other things that are going on, and this prevent strategy, and these partner companies that they're using, then you're just going into military intelligence. And we've got this link up with all of the intelligence services anyway. But I mean, my my view of it is that yeah, this artificial intelligence thing is the scary thing for me. The actual intelligence side of it, of the people who are responsible for it all, doesn't worry me that much, because what I've seen over the years is just huge incompetence. And I think the intelligence services are hugely incompetent. And I don't think there's been a time in our history when they have been exposed as being quite as incompetent as they are now, because the narrative that is coming out of these think tanks like Demos, straight into Sky News and the BBC through MI5 is laughable. It's absolutely laughable, the stuff they put out. And this has really come to light with what's happened in Syria, with these people being accused of being Russian agents and all this, just because they're actually putting out information. And when they get them onto these mainstream channels, it's obvious that they're making fools out of Sky News and the BBC. I'm quite shocked that Sky and the BBC are letting them on, actually, because they're wiping the floor with them. Even the Sea Lord, that guy, West, wasn't it? He was on, and he was disagreeing with the mainstream narrative. So you've got the military are now disagreeing with this chemical attack narrative. You've got Peter Ford, the Syrian ambassador. They keep having him on. Now, you would have thought that they'd learnt their lesson about him, because he completely discredited the last time that there was a chemical attack. It's quite incredible, but it's the vacuousness of the media. I suppose they just live from day to day and they phone people up and they don't really remember who they are. This doesn't seem to be any strategy with them. And, well, they're losing ground, aren't they, I think? But I don't think they've been losing ground this quickly. I've never seen it falling apart so quickly. But the very worrying thing is about all this data and surveillance is that I know that the police in this country are not doing their job. Now, people go, well, that's obvious. Well, I've found out it's actually true because of things that I've been having to deal with disruption and subversion that's been going on in the lives of some people I know, very serious crimes that are not being addressed. And what is worrying is that the police seem to be targeting the easy targets. For instance, they have 900 Met Police looking at Twitter and looking for hate crime on Facebook and all this nonsense. I mean, I've had the police phone me up about it because some malicious, extreme left, overprivileged, white privileged lunatic decided to incite some hatred against me and gave the police some hearsay. And so I've got this copper phoning me up, totally clueless. And you could tell he didn't want to be bothered with it. But then I gave him a whole list of all the harassment and crimes that these people had committed against me. And I said, but where's my redress? And he goes, well, phone 101. So that's what's happening. But yeah, actually, Tony, yeah, play that clip and then maybe we can have a little chat and then a break.
Okay, here we go.
The Social Media Monitor application can be used to identify areas where the public is commenting about topics related to potential animal or insect issues, problem areas, or other vector-borne disease concerns. This application is configured to search social media feeds for specific terms. Here, I am playing the role of an internal staff member trying to mine social media to determine potential problem areas that may need treatment or represent the start of an outbreak. After loading the Social Media Monitor app, I can see results from social feeds that were filtered for keywords. These keywords can be modified to include other terms that might be useful in identifying issues. If I see any geographic concentrations in these feeds, I can note those locations and report them to create a sampling or treatment request. This information can also aid in a number of surveillance and planning activities by augmenting my internal authoritative data and help me proactively locate potential problem areas. This is a very useful tool since not all issues are reported through...
Yeah, very useful tool indeed.
Now, what he said at the end, Tony, is very important, right? He said that they're not always reported. So what they're doing there is potentially controlling the narrative for local news gathering, or an even national news gathering. So in other words, if the intelligence services decide that they want to have something as a distraction in an area, such as a threat of a chemical attack to evacuate people, well, these lot will be able to map the whole thing. Because they've got the demographic, they'll know exactly how to place it.
Indeed.
All this stuff can be implanted. You see, if they've got that information of how the public react on social media, then they know what to do. They know where to put it. It's very, very simple. I mean, this goes into the vaccinations and the flu jab, because you can use that as an example. And I'll get into that after the break, because this is an interesting area now. And I think it's one that people should be prepared for, because I think that this is going to be used in this world of social media, which is why, well, one of the reasons I got off Facebook was because it's become boring, and it's so tedious. It's an echo chamber. It's pointless. It's people ranting on to themselves. It's a waste of time and energy, in my opinion. You know, and I've always thought that. But I used to find it quite handy to contact people quickly on, so I just went with it. But now I look at it and go, oh no, it's people calling the people in the House of Lords traitors and treason, and so what? So what?
Yeah, we do have...
What's it going to do?
We have a lot of comments and questions for you from the chat. I think we'll do it after the break. But there's
let's have a break first, eh?
Well, there's one here that I want to bring in now because it's relevant to what you was just saying. And it's from Anonymous2443. And he's on the site right now, and they show that how ESRI helps move the masses for marches. And I didn't see that bit myself, but that's controlling the narrative quite considerably.
Absolutely. I mean, once you look into it, I mean, I'm scratching the surface with this stuff. I wanted to give people an overview to start with, because once you look into this, it's so sinister. And if you've got an organisation like Crimestoppers, which is basically giving people bribes to shop other people, which is actually what it is. Let's call it out for what it is, right? That's actually what it is. They're saying, if you know something, we can get someone arrested, we'll give you $1,000, or it might be more.
Yep.
If they get convicted, you'll get more.
Yep.
You get thousands.
Where's all that money you owed for solving all them cases on Crimestoppers? You cleared it right out for them, didn't you? You must be owed thousands.
Well, the point is that, we took 480 dangerous criminals off the streets with one email, Tony, and we never got paid.
Yeah.
I want me $480,000. Where is it? However, I think we should have a break now.
Yep, here we go then. Ian Hound Dog Terry. We've got 2 tracks, not sure what they're called, but Mark will tell you after if you really need to know.
I've seen a snake fit filled to the brim. A real hip catch, you call it whiskey and gin. Save the cat stew, just mix it and then watch yourself float in my magical dam. Don't mess with the dark side. Stay clear from the dark side of town. Don't mess with the dark side. Stay clear with that fooling around. Oh baby, don't slip around with me. Big Jim had a terrible life when it cut a little piece of his wife. Caught him messing with some other man. Now he's doing 16 years in the can. Don't Went to the river to jump in. Baby turned up, she said, I'll tell you when. Well, I'm so down, I'm almost level with the ground. Well, I feel like this, my baby can be found. Love you, baby, with my heart and soul. A love like ours will never grow old. In the evening, back in the nighttime too. Oh, when you spend my money, get so mad with you. Well, I'm tore down, I'm almost level with the ground. Well, I feel like this, my baby can be found. You, babe, with my heart and soul. A love like ours will never grow old. I love you in the morning, back up in the nighttime too. But when you spend my money, I get mad with you. Well, I'm tore down, I'm almost level with the ground. Well, I feel like this when my baby can be found. What kind of woman is this? Can be found.
Welcome back to Windows on the World. Yeah, you there, Tony?
Yeah, you just took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to come back with the old meatloaf there, though, because we're not smashy and nicey, are we?
No, that was proper timing, no?
Not all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. A couple of tracks from me and Hound Dog Terry there. And I worked with Ian quite a few times. And yeah, it's such an odd thing because now life's changed so much. And well, only last year I was in a dressing room in Selsey in Sussex in like early March. And it was freezing. And we were playing to a load of drunk people in a holiday park. And yeah, I kind of miss those days. There don't seem to be many of them around anymore. But there's a great camaraderie in that sort of thing because you go to these places and you're there to do a job and you have to have this kind of way of... It's like good strategy. It's good training. It keeps you kind of focused on things, and that's what we need, really. We need to be kind of ready for anything, ready to adapt, I think, because like we said in the first part of the show, this YouTube thing, I know it's coming. I know we're going to get kicked off YouTube, so we need to start building this base now and get people following us on Spreaker and download the videos and go to BitChute, because we're on BitChute, and that, even though it doesn't get much traffic, it's pretty good. And our shows now go straight to YouTube and BitChute, which is brilliant. We don't have to upload things. So, yeah, it's a shame, but that's the way it seems to be. So we have to be ready to adapt. And I think that's the key to it all now. I was thinking about this years ago. We all think, oh my God, the way things are going, what's going to happen? Well, you just have to be able to adapt. I mean, this 5G thing is pretty horrific. And what Mark Steele's been doing with his party, Save Us Now, the Sun Party, and getting out there onto mainstream has been quite successful. Since he did our show, Richie Allen, he's been in the Mail. All right, they tried to undermine him. He's also been on mainstream television. There's been reports, and it's out there. But the thing is, even if he's discredited by the mainstream media, or they try and discredit him, it's still in the public consciousness. And it doesn't always take that long for them to come around. So I'm interested in getting people up and down the country, invisibles, basically, who just want to contribute to the show, keep sending the stuff in. We've got some great people already. And I want to go around doing some talks and talk to sensible people who are actually getting organised and doing things. Because I think that the fun side of this is that you can do something about it. And I think we need to have some kind of counterculture going on, not the controlled opposition type counterculture, which we all know and go, oh my God, because we've seen so much of that over the years. But people who are sovereign and genuine and don't have, you see, I don't believe in forming organisations. I believe that there shouldn't be a name of an organisation. It should just be individuals working together. That's why I don't like groups, because groups are always infiltrated and they always fall out. I mean, people are trained to go into groups. That's the whole point. I've seen it thousands of times before, from Occupy to any of these organisations and hubs of activity that start up. And the same old faces or new ones turn up. And we've got to remember that this is a big business, and the disruption business and the monitoring business and the change agent business is massive. I mean, Unlimited, which is the change agent organisation, which we've covered quite a lot if you go to things like Big Society Change Agents, Big Society Change Agents on windowsontheworld.net, and of course all our stuff on social engineering, our massive back catalogue on the social engineering. Well, we talk about these organisations. They're training people into this program. We're talking about the hive mind. That's all it is. And they're getting trained into it. And of course, they use the useful idiots and the narcissists. And it doesn't matter whether they're going to be sacrificed ultimately. They're useful at the moment. And they're the ones that you've got in your local council. They're the ones you're up against in these departments of the police. So we've got to somehow go higher. And I'm not talking about those idiots in Parliament either. MPs are absolutely useless. I've contacted MPs. I've had MP down here, Gordon Henderson. He knows I brought down Crime Stoppers. Is he interested? No. Well, he's probably scared. They were trying to get rid of me in the end. But what are they there for, these people? I don't quite understand what their public duty is. I mean, I think I've been blocked by a couple of MPs now because I've pointed out that they are virtue signalling, self-interested, narcissistic puppets. And you can just see this. It's so obvious that they virtue signal at all the right events and never do a damn thing. And I've brought to the attention of some of these MPs incredibly serious issues that I would actually do something about. So none of these people are any use to us. So I think a bit of the old counterculture and the invisibles, I like that term, you see, because that goes into, there was an order called the Rosicrucians, and it was basically a publicity stunt. Now, I'm not going to go into all the depth and the mysteries and the allegories of all this stuff about, was it Freemasonry? And yes, and the actual idea of it was an invisible society that didn't actually exist, and nobody knew who it was. But they appeared every 100 years. And it's an incredible story. I want to do a show on it, actually, Tony, because as an idea of publicity, it was absolute genius, and I don't think it could be topped even today. and that was in 1610. And they'd allegedly been around for 100 years, but silenced. And there's some great allegorical writing all around that subject and occult stuff and everything that people are fascinated to listen to, which doesn't really get you anywhere, but is interesting. And I think that it's time for a revival of that kind of thing. Let's have a renaissance of invisibles, people who are maybe approaching us and other people and being just anonymous and giving us really good information, and then they can be part of this new invisible movement. What do you think, Tony?
I think it's a great idea. I think you've already started it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because then you don't have to have an organisation. You know, we don't need to name it. That was the whole point of what they were doing, these guys. They were incredibly good at PR. And of course, it was a time when the Catholic Church was really persecuting people. And that's bringing us into the documentary that I'm doing at the moment, which is the thing about Smithfield. And you can see some of the stuff we did down there a couple of years ago. And I'm covering this from the point of view of heresy, because heresy is a very important and noble thing. And a heretic merely means someone who is able to choose. So that's the whole point. The church at that time didn't want people who were able to choose. They didn't want people who could read. They didn't want people who could make their own minds up about what was in scriptures. They wanted third parties. So nothing's changed. It's just a different kind of control system. And of course, we had Unam Sanctum of 1302, I think it was, Pope Boniface VIII, stated that there was no salvation outside the Holy Roman Church. There was no salvation at all. So that's called controlling the narrative. And they took possession of all the land in all the world until Jesus came back, and they were going to look after it for him, which was a pretty good idea. I mean, pretty profitable one as well. But these are just assumptions. And what's happening is that all this stuff is being done on our behalf, and people are either they don't know or they don't want to know. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. And if you are incompetent, then you are a ward of the court or the council. So we don't need to go into the deep mystery and occult side of it, because we've been through it before. And I'm going to do a talk as well. In my talk, I'm going to be putting all this into it. So it's going to be a slide presentation, which I've never done before. I've always got up and just had a few notes, but I want to do a really focused thing, but with a lot of little cul-de-sacs that let's put it this way, diversions of interesting stories where people can actually get some inspiration. So it's not going to be a dry sort of presentation, but it's what I realized is that over the years we've got so much knowledge, we've just got so much stuff. When I look back on even the things we've done with the shows, it's a great reference point. You know, I have to look back at it myself and go, wow, this is great, you know. But anyway, we'd better, however, move on and get back into this corporation that is going to be mapping everything along with other corporations. And you did have some stuff in the chat box, Tony, didn't you?
Yeah, we've got a lot going on in the chat. Martin Houston, hiya Martin, he says that if you get a pro account on Spreaker, you can have your shows put on Spotify automatically. I didn't know that, but that might be something worth investigating.
Yeah, it's the next one up to the one we've got, I think, which is, I think it's quite a lot more money.
Yeah,
but
I think
yeah,
I think we'd need more donations to be able to get up there. I think it's 50 notes a month or something for that.
Yeah, not along with all the broadband. I mean, because I'm kind of off grid in a way, I've not got wired broadband. I have to use two devices, and I've got my internet bill's quite high actually. So yeah, it's all to be considered. And of course, the websites and I actually do have quite a lot of expenses. That's the thing. Well, you know that, don't you, Tony? You know the expenses we've got. But,
yeah, even petrol, the amount of travelling that you have to do, you don't even get the cost of that covered by what comes in at the minute. I know that. But
no, we don't really cover anything. But the thing is that I think that getting out there and doing more things and trying to get people on board and maybe putting some talks on, if people want to put talks on, get in touch, put some events on. We can maybe charge a few quid on the door and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that'd be much more inspiring, because I'm rapidly going off the internet now. I'm kind of getting very bored with it all, because I can see that it's going to be shut down. And in actual fact, a lot more gets done with communication, real communication. Posting things on Facebook and Twitter is all right if you're absolutely exhausted and can't do anything else and you want a bit of a giggle. It's actually a fellow called Alexander Nekrasov on Twitter, and he's very, very funny. But basically, he uses it as agitation to wind people up. And I love his comments. They're great. But these are just kind of side issue pastimes, you know. I mean, I actually saw him at the George Galloway thing, Russia House. It was him and Adam Gary and George Galloway, but he got up and he nailed that Skripal thing. We played the audio, didn't we, Tony? That was him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, check him out on Twitter. He's called Stirring Trouble on Twitter. He's very, very funny.
Yeah. Lee made a comment about Twitter earlier. He said, I'm paraphrasing now, trying to remember it, but something along the lines of Twitter is a mini Facebook. It's a megaphone for angry people to vent. Something like that.
Of course it is. Well, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It was set up for that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But,
shall I get on with these?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Eric says that Alison Chablot, a guest on your show many times, and the London Forum have been booted off of YouTube. Did you know that? Are you there? I think I've lost Mark. Okay. Got no sound from you, mate.
Okay, I'm sorry, Tony.
Right.
I actually plugged the headphones out while I was getting my cup of tea.
Okay.
Longer lead. Yes, you were saying that Alison Chablot and the London Forum been kicked off.
Yeah, did you know that?
Yes, I know Alison had been, and I know that the London Forum had gone. Yeah.
Okay, another helpful comment from Martin about how we might make put some funds together. Mark, have you thought of selling your show archives on a memory stick and make collections and that sort of thing? So, yeah, that might be.
Well, actually, that's very prescient that Martin should say that, because he sent me a memory stick weeks ago, and I am going to send it back. And it's a tiny thing. I've got it here on top of my computer now. It's on my to-do list. And as before the show, I was thinking, Martin's thing, make sure you don't lose it, because it's so small, this thing. It's just the end of a USB stick, basically, with a little bit of plastic on it, and it's 128 gig, you know. I don't want to lose it. But, yeah, I mean, I've been a bit inundated, because I'm helping a friend of mine who's been attacked with this charity, and we are going to put all this out. It's a big story, and I think you know a little bit about it, Tony, but it's a big reflection of what's going on in the country, and it's pretty shocking, actually. And I want people who are getting attacked, small organisations who are being shut down, or charities that are being shut down. I'm not talking about big charities, I'm talking about small ones. If you know any that are being attacked or having problems, and small trusts, get in touch, because I think what we've uncovered here is part of something that's going on. Small organisations are being destroyed, which is why we need to form loose alliances, I think. Take a leaf out of the opponent's book, you know. Not wanting to sound militant here, but I do like getting things done. However, Tony, carry on.
Yeah. Eric again says, the people that run the country are the bankers, the prime monster, and the rest of the cretins are nothing more than puppets. Yep, I think most of our listeners would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre that the public will still keep going on like this, because it's so obvious now. It's absolutely blatantly obvious. Well, to me anyway, but to most people I speak to, when you actually talk to them, when you actually get past the nonsense, then they believe that. But of course, the human race have been dumbed down to accept things, and basically they like being in the pharmacological bubble. Most people like it. I don't. I actually don't like it. But when you do get outside, I mean, it's easy to get carried away and start ranting. It's like that video we did last week, or the mini Ice Age one. someone's ranting on there going, ha 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 ha, don't mention chemtrails, will you? Piers Corbyn, he's got the Club of Rome and the Fabian Society. Now, Piers isn't a member of either of those things, right? They wouldn't have him. But the point is that I said, look, you're discrediting yourself by saying this, because the first show I ever did was about geoengineering. And he says, read the document, the regulation of geoengineering. I read it when it came out in 2010, you know. And these are the sort of people who are discrediting us. They're like agents of the state, you know. They're ranting on as though they know everything, and they just sound like lunatics, you know. It really annoys me that, because the first show I ever did was about geoengineering. But let's put it this way. That was in 2014. I've been looking at geoengineering since 2007. However, I still don't have absolute prima facie evidence that I could put into a court of what's going on. I've got documents, I've got circumstantial evidence, but I haven't got the evidence. And this is what is needed. You can't go around just with this kind of conspiratorial kind of. It's almost like it's an arrogance that people have. They get a little knowledge is an extremely dangerous thing, you know, and that's where people can be tripped up very, very easily, in my opinion, you know.
Unique Lee has a question for you. I'm not sure that it makes sense to me. Hopefully it does to you. Who is the creditor that is lending inhabitants future credit? And if it is, that takes us into the rights of consumer credit legislation, which makes the situation much different and more fun demanding the information who is supplying the credit for the yearly services.
Well, do some investigation and find out. You know, we've been banging on about this stuff for years, and I'm interested in the bigger picture now, because this stuff with local councils, they're becoming more and more removed. If that's what he's talking about, if he's talking about what we were talking about earlier on, I'm assuming.
This is from early in the first part of the show. He also goes on to say, if the council are making credit agreements which are unconstitutional contracts at common law.
No, it's not a credit agreement. It wasn't a credit agreement. No, they have a credit union, which is like a bank, basically, a local bank. And you have to look at credit unions are very popular in Canada, North America. They're very, very popular, and they're often run as community organisations. However, what I think happened about 10 years ago is they did a big thing. It's all about the new communitarianism. They said that they're going to set up these credit unions for communities. Now, that's a good thing to look into. Have a look into credit unions. See if you can find anything on your local council's credit union. Because we've just reported in the first part of the show that their internal fraud inspectors, when they were actually appointed, found 13 cases of fraud in the first 6 months. So this is a good thing to look into. However, the thing about that credit union reference was it was on a council tax document from Newlands. Newlands was saying that I had a credit union reference when I didn't. I had a council tax number. So I believe that it's possible that the council tax number is being used as a bond or a future, right? So that was what that was about. But there's nothing to stop them doing it, because it's a security. It's a security. So it's, you know, that's the way it works. I don't think there's anything illegal about it. It'd just be nice to know. That's all, because it's just another layer of. Basically, it could be described as a fraud in certain respects, but you have to prove this stuff. It's very difficult to prove.
Mm-hmm. Lee carries on with his chat, and this was a chat that was going on in the chat room between several people, and I've got some bits of it here that are kind of relevant. But he says he wanted to go down the simple route, and he thought to try and ask them if they would stop providing services. How hard can it be to cancel a service you never wanted or needed?
Well, I mean, it goes down the poor laws. You can't cancel it. You're a pauper. No. You can't cancel it.
Yeah,
because you are a ward of the council. You've accepted it. You live in the borough. By living in the borough, you are property.
That's right.
We've been through all this stuff before. I mean, it's interesting, but it's not interesting anymore in a way, because it's just ancient occult law. But the council have liabilities to you, you have liabilities to them. That's the way it works. However, their liabilities to us have been removed. That's the point. We have to make them liable. And this was what everything I've done has been about, making them personally liable. They have a fiduciary duty in a respect, because the whole idea of the parish was to look after you. And if you're a pauper, then you need restitution, or you need to be able to have remedy. And that's the whole point of it. So they can't have it both ways. That's what the point is about it, I think. If you look at the system, they want it both ways. They want to sit on their arses doing as little as possible. And they want to put on Twitter, for instance, Waltham Forest. I've asked them, right, is leaning a mattress against your house or putting a sofa outside your house waiting for collection fly tipping? Because you're implying that that's fly tipping, and fining people for putting a sofa next to a bin that the council's going to take away. So they put these pictures out with neatly tied up little bags next to one of their plastic bins, which is obviously overflowing, right? And they call it fly tipping. Now, this is outrageous to me, that they've even got the front to do that. I mean, it's a minor and petty issue, but they're paid to take this stuff away, you know, and they won't respond to it.
Yeah.
And that is the problem, that they are huge bureaucracies that are unaccountable. Okay, that's how communism works, but they're meant to be accountable. My idea is to strip back all this, because what we've been talking about the whole show is about that, to strip it back. We need to get these people removed from their bloody jobs, because they're not doing them. And the MPs are useless. The councillors are useless. Most of these councillors have got their noses in the trough now with these developers. And that's been found out. We've done show after show about this. And how much more do the public need to know? These councils are now the extension of government. They are local government. However, they are local government writ large. And that's the point. They are taking on the role of central government. That's not their job, because we have elected MPs. We have a House of Lords and a House of Commons. All right. They're pointless as well in some ways, but that's the way it's meant to work. We're not meant to be deferred to these people who are unaccountable. And that to me is the issue here. It's making them do their job.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is, really.
Holding them to their oath. And their own terms of services and their agreements that they set out and all that on their websites. You'll often find that they're breaching them left, right and centre if you can bother to read them.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, this was the whole point of looking into this company. So we've got Crimestoppers who are being funded by this military industrial complex company who are data mining. And then you've got Crimestoppers who are linked to local councils and the police, who are basically offering ransom money for you to shot people anonymously. And they're doing it through their programs like fearless.org for children. And they're going around recruiting people. And of course, it's the voluntary sector. Everybody works for nothing apart from those with their noses in the trough on 200 grand a year. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And that's what I have a problem with, because I do the job of these MPs for them. Gordon Henderson wouldn't have anything to do with the information I gave him. Why? Okay, so he's in with the police and he wants to keep the police happy, but that's not the point. His constituents are getting put on a public-facing website, probably for things they haven't done and having their lives ruined. That was my point. And he doesn't want to do anything about it. So he's another one, nose in the trough, waste of space, wouldn't even see me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just get sick of them, because we put work into this. And I've done loads of research into the stuff. I can present it. I can present it all in a legal form. And you give them it on a plate and they don't want to know. So why don't they want to know? Well, we know why they don't want to know. But it's kind of boring because the the amount of apathy around this that you when you're trying to get something done, it is pretty impossible. But the system is getting worse. That's the point. I mean, we've got an ongoing problem with my friend's charity, and the police have been given everything. They've got everything. They haven't done anything about it, and it's serious stuff. But they're very interested in looking into what I'm doing. Oh, is there hate speak on here? Is he saying something he shouldn't be saying? And I'm going to the police. I'm giving them absolute information. Everything done. All they have to do is investigate it. I've done the job for them, but they don't want to do it. And that's the whole issue. So it's all about now, I think, getting the information out underground, and we keep it in-house. You know, people can send stuff. I don't reveal it. Well, let's be like Crimestoppers. Come to us anonymously. Yeah. We can't pay you, unfortunately. I can't give you £1,000 in a brown envelope like Crimestoppers seem to do. And obviously get more for if they get convicted in the court, then you get loads more. But this is the way it's going. So it's kind of clear the way it's going, that the state is now just going to be turning these organisations on anybody who's outside the narrative. And there are people at the high end of things still who are accountable, but it's certainly not those idiots in the town hall, because their brain cells went a long time ago, as far as I can see. And they've got those useful idiots in there. It's like the Waltham Forest. Their CEO, she watched our show, listened to it, the one about London's dystopia, and that tower block plan for those two towers to be yuppified, or one of them was going to be refurbed, and then affordable housing. Of course, it's always affordable if you can afford it, isn't it? Well, that got pulled, you see, and I don't know whether it was our show, but I sent it to her, and I sent it to Useful Idiot Lokesy as well, who's let's call him the village idiot, because he's the one who destroyed Walthamstow village, and he's a useful idiot for somebody. And he said, "Oh, it's a hugely I don't subscribe to your hugely discredited conspiracy theories." And I sent him an 8-point response, which he couldn't respond to. I said, "Well, let's have a debate about it." I said, "Which of the 40 chapters of Agenda 21 are conspiracy theory? Which of the evidence that I've supplied to you is faulty? What part of it is a problem? Because I'm giving you evidence here." And the CEO of Waltham Forest, this is what gets me as well. It's all about identity politics. You've just got identity politics everywhere. So it's the identitarian who is in charge. In other words, so leader of Waltham Forest Council, it's not leader of Waltham Forest Council, it's feminist. Well, okay. But what's that got to do with you? I mean, you brought it up. You see what I mean? It's like the identity politics, and Gilad Atzmon's very good on this, about identity politics. It's all about that. And these virtue signalling idiots, you've got Chuka Ramoni, you've got Stella Creasy, you've got David Lammy. There's loads of these people who just turn up on Twitter for photo op to virtue signal behind something. I'm picking on those three because those are people that I see a lot of their tweets, but Chuka Ramona especially. Absolute vacuous puppet. In my opinion, even worse than Sadiq Khan, and there's not much worse than that. However, I'm ranting here, Tony. We're going to do a show about this, weren't we? We're going to have a rant show, a more relaxed kind of show with generalised kind of opinion,
Yeah, maybe get a few of the audience to call in and stuff like that. Play a bit of music in between, something like that.
Yeah,
could do that.
I think that'd be good. But yeah, my point about all this, where it was going, when that fella said about ESRI, and he was talking about bioweapons attacks, right? You can see all this on the website. They talk about bioweapons attacks. Now, why are they talking? When have we had a bioweapons attack in this country? Can you remember?
No.
There's been threats of them.
Yeah, last time Mithrin was here, there was a bioweapons attack in my front room, but we won't go into that.
Yeah, but that's different. But he works deep undercover, doesn't he? See, Tony.
He does.
But this is the point, and this is what happens. Things get put into the narrative. So they're using this like bioweapons thing in there. Why are they doing that? Why are they putting that into the narrative? Well, because of what we said, that this sort of thing can be so easily manufactured. What a great way to shut down an area. We've already talked about the Agenda 21 stuff. In other words, the gentrification, the closing off of the roads. And I talk about Waltham Forest because I know the area, but it's happening everywhere. But I can actually see, because I mapped that, how it worked. That area can be shut down by closing 2 roads now. Whole area, locked down, done. No in or out. And if you're talking about this kind of mapping system, then you don't need martial law. It's already in place. That's the whole point. You don't need to have soldiers on the street. Everything's done. You've got it all. You know, you can have a visible presence, but you don't really need it, because once you've got all the roads shut, no one can get in or out. There's only there's 2 access points, as far as I can see, with 2 roads, which need to be blocked. And once those are blocked, you could shut down an area of about 150,000 people with about 4 policemen. Do you know what I mean? And this is what the whole thing's about to me. It's like that's the whole creeping nature of it is quite irritating, to put it mildly, because I don't like to feel that I'm restricted. And I was beginning to feel I was very restricted down there. But the example I was going to give was that about 18 months ago, I was in Wales and something came onto the Welsh news, and it was flu epidemic, right? Now, it said over 3,000 reported cases, right? Reported. Now, 2 weeks later, what it was, I'll give you a better picture. Came onto the news, and it was stock footage of a doctor's surgery and people basically queuing up. And stock footage. So they put some stock footage together and they put a narration underneath that there's been a flu epidemic or there's an outbreak. An outbreak is what they usually say. There's an outbreak of flu. Now, I said at the time, that's just, they've got some vaccines they want to get rid of. And my stepfather said, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And my mother goes, oh, don't be silly. Right. So 2 weeks later, it was mainstream news. It was a scam. They said there was over 3,000 suspected cases. Well, there wasn't. The actual cases were no higher than normal. So the suspected cases and the hype and the nonsense got everyone going to get their flu jab. So this is the same thing that they're doing here with what they're saying on that website. This is what they're going to be doing. They can manufacture anything. And the council, as we said in the first half of the show, are already doing it, really. I mean, we're going back to the old-fashioned thing of a form and data mining and all the rest of it. But they clearly cannot control their own data. And even if they could control it, do they really want to? No, they want to supply it to third parties. It even says on council documents that it will all be shared. All your data is shared anyway. I mean, I've got an address which nobody knows, but several organisations have found it, and it's not my address. It's an address that one organisation was using, right? So it was a bank. I needed an address for a bank. Now, that bank have told me that they don't share my data with anybody else. So where are they getting it from? And that's another thing that's coming in this month, is that you have to opt out of a lot of the stuff. You have to write to your bank because they're going to be sharing your stuff with everybody. So the time is coming when Newlands or your local council are going to be looting your bank account for that parking ticket from 10 years ago. And this, I think, is going to enrage people. Because, well, with me, if they want all the parking tickets, I'm going to be bankrupt, Tony.
No, not once you get your Crimestoppers reward, you'll be sorted.
Exactly. I want me 480 grand.
Give them all a drink then for the parking tickets.
I got 480 criminals taken overnight. 480 I'm off the national database.
Yeah.
But there's 142 people on it. There was 580 before.
Yeah, even Batman's never done that well.
No. It's incredible. I mean, the crime fighting that Windows on the World has achieved is off the charts. It's unbelievable. And we've got evidence that, we've got the screenshots, and we've also got the admission from Crimestoppers. That was very amusing when Roger Critchell wrote back to me, head of operations, and said, well, after consideration, we decided that we'd leave the picture up because we thought it was proportional and blah, blah, blah. And then we did this, and then we did that, and then we did this, and then we decided, we might take it down in this particular... No, you got it completely wrong in the first place, and you were told to take it down. And they said, well, I won't be talking to you anyway because you were a defence witness in this case, and we can't talk to defence witnesses. So I sent him back what the CPS had told me. The CPS told me I wasn't in court, Tony. So I sent him that, and he apologised. And he said, if you want to make a complaint about me, please do. There you go. So sometimes you have to use their own nonsense against them. The CPS told me I wasn't in court. I wasn't in court.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I'm not a defence witness. Whatever gave you that idea?
Quality.
I know. I said that was funny. I mean, there's a lot to this, actually. I mean... If I'd have gone into the depths of the detail of it, I think we've done that really in previous shows, but it's still a very interesting case because it shows you what you can do. I mean, it's holding them to account, and that's what I'm very encouraged about, because if you get the useful idiots out of the way and go for the people who actually matter, you might get something done. Is there anything else, Tony?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, there's quite a bit still to get through, and hold on, I'm going to do 3 birds with 1 stone here. So this is Eric, and he agrees with what you were saying earlier. We're going back to the first half of the show now, for those that might come in late, and you'll need to listen again on YouTube, or better still, Spreaker or windowsontheworld.net. I agree, Mark, regarding Pat Condell. I think he may allegedly be working for the Mossy people, but Kremlin states that Pat Condell, he thinks, is acting on his own. And to tie it up with another one that I got from Jenna in the chat room, Jenna said something along the lines of, can you ask Mark who he was alluding to, referring to Katie Hopkins working for someone? So take it away.
Well, just look at the T-shirt that she wears.
That's exactly what I said in the chat.
Check the T-shirt out. Check who she was with in New Zealand.
Indeed, yeah, and there is some support for Katie, and I can see why some people would get into that sort of
it's an echo chamber.
debate.
She's telling you what you want to hear, but you have to look what's behind it and why she's doing it.
Indeed, yeah.
Not actually what it seems, and that is despicable in my opinion, because she is not playing a straight bat there at all.
Eric goes on to say there is no difference between a mafia protection racket and council tax. You are forced to pay the huge sums of your hard-earned money to stop them doing something nasty to you. Yep, that's exactly what I said to him in my phone call.
Well, yes, I mean, they just send around these people who bash on your door and take your car away. Yeah, they do that. Newlands, and that was another point, actually. I accused Newlands of fraud. It's a shame that website got taken down, because the notice to Newlands was really good, because what happened was, after this single person's discount thing had been sorted out, they still carried on as though I owed this money to Newlands, and I've had a new bill, but they were trying to, they obviously just sell the debt on, you see. So I got this nonsense from Newlands, and I said, that's fraud, because there was no liability order. And they said, the council have got it. So I got on to the council, said, where's the liability order? Can you send it? Newlands have got it. Newlands, council have got it. I said, well, can't you both have it? I mean, you'd both have a copy, wouldn't you? So I'm saying that you haven't got the liability order. If I don't get it in 28 days, you haven't got it. Didn't get it. Okay, that's fraud. So what you're doing, you've made up a debt that I don't owe, with credit union reference on it, which doesn't exist because I'm not a member of it. So, yeah, how far can this go? Well, they just make it up. But all that debt stuff is interesting because you can use the BOVAT remedy. That's very good. BOEVAT.org.uk. We had Pete on talking about that. That does work.
Yep.
Because we're talking about the law.
Yeah, I've shared that with a few people that are having good results.
Yep. It absolutely works. Because once you put these things into equity, they fall apart. And what they don't want to do is put it into equity because it'll fall apart. And that's what happens when people get their houses stolen. They can get their houses stolen through the county court, and there's no equity involved at all because they're not actually stealing it for a debt. They're just stealing it. They're making up the debt. Well, you can do that. It's a fiat currency system, so you can make up debt. You can issue promissory notes. We can all do these things, and it's kind of that side of it's quite fun. But what is sinister is when you can't do anything about it, because that is the problem. I said to a friend of mine having trouble with trespassers and basically theft within our building, and I said to the coppers, I said, well, if we had money, then we could just go to Rossendale's and get them kicked out. And he goes, yeah, and we'd help you. So I mean, that's the thing, that the police will side with these bears, and in some cases, it could be useful if you've got trespassers who are abusing your property. And because one thing I will say in conclusion for tonight, Tony, is that there's no law and order in this country anymore. I know that because I've seen it in the past 18 months. There is no rule of law left.
Indeed.
And people go, oh, well, without that, we'd have anarchy, wouldn't we? No, anarchy's self-governance, isn't it? So anarchy is being able to govern yourself.
Yeah.
But we haven't got that because people can't govern themselves.
No, most people can't nowadays, but that's deliberate programming in order to make them dependent on government.
Yes. But in conclusion for tonight, on a rather more hilarious note, a lot of these sort of surveillance programs that these ex-police and people like that get into, and I don't want to knock the police, I'm not saying just because you're police, I'm just saying that you've got these people who start up these little surveillance companies, and a lot of them are falling flat on their arses. That's a side issue, though, when we compare it to ESRI, which is the military-industrial complex taking over. It's a bit more bit different, but there's things on here like this. There's partners with say in Kent, they've got the Kent People's Trust. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, actually, it's an award-winning youth program, and coming out of that, linked to that is a thing called Country Eye, which is run by a fella called Peter Rollington. Now, it says, contact our team if you have any information about crime in the countryside. So you think, oh, must be quite a big team. Well, you know what the email is? Him. Oh. You contact him.
Right.
So he must be out and about all the time in his patrol vehicle, looking for crime in the countryside.
Yeah, there's plenty of it.
Well, there is, but I'm not quite sure. I'll have to get in touch with him maybe, and we can follow that up, because it was more the ESRI I was looking into. But yeah, he's called Country Eye Limited, and I looked him up on Company's House, and yes, he's the sole director of that, and he looks like he's the sole occupant of Country Eye, unless he's got any other employees. But this is how it all seems to work. You've got this network of stuff, and when you look into it, there's not much behind it. And yeah, so I suppose we're getting near to the end here. Is there anything else in the chat box that we need to go through, Tony?
Yeah, there's still quite a bit left there, but Mithrin's saying here in the chat, I was earning $3,000 a day doing that Windows. It's not on its butt.
No, I didn't say it was generally, but I'm talking about that some of these initiatives that they're doing. I mean, these people set these things up, but you've got to remember that this trust business, this People's Trust, is funded. These are funded.
Yep.
These are getting funding. These aren't business people. If you're talking about the sort of security business, you know. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these things that attach themselves to things that look like they're part of a community program.
I get
That's
you.
more what I'm talking about. No, you're absolutely right. The surveillance business, obviously, is big business. We've been talking about it all the time, haven't we?
Yeah.
But,
And another one from earlier, from
Yeah.
one of our ex-police friends. He says that the man from Crimestoppers came to the Nick and told us how cops are not allowed to pass information to them because of the reward. He then went on to explain how the reward is paid anonymously,
Right.
and that loads of cops use it. Wink, wink. Right, that's interesting.
What do you mean? The actual police are using it for their own ends?
Well, the police themselves weren't able to post the criminals because of the reward involved, yeah? But they was kind of apparently doing it anyway, or encouraged to.
Yeah, well, we found out that, we proved that they were posting them because, according to Crime Stoppers, it is the police who upload them. We've got that in writing and it's on their website.
Right.
So it is the police that upload to Crime Stoppers. So it's the police who are in charge of proportionality, which is the problem. Because if you look at what was on Crime Stoppers, it was people who had missed the bail, or they hadn't turned up for bail or hadn't turned up for a court appearance. Now that might not be their fault. I mean, it's not proportionate to put somebody as a most wanted criminal on, because I don't think anyone looks at Crime Stoppers. I don't think anyone looks at Crime Stoppers apart from people like drug dealers and that, because it was basically some low-level criminal people that said that my friend was on Crime Stoppers. I know they're involved in low-level criminality, basically. So they were probably looking for themselves or people that they knew on it, right? So I don't think that anyone looks at Crime Stoppers apart from people involved in crime to see if they're on it. I don't think the public look at it at all, because my friend was on there for 18 months and nobody, apart from one guy who was involved in low-level crime, actually knew about it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I don't think people look at it. But it is the police who put them on. It comes from the Wanted Persons Bureau. And I actually have lots of conversations that I recorded with the Wanted Persons Bureau, and we can play them on the show if we ever get to, want to do it. But I actually also got crime reference numbers through the Wanted Persons Bureau and reference numbers for evidence that was meant to be given to us through them as well. and I talked to them for a long time. And I don't think that it's a coincidence of what happened in Kent, that it was this whole thing with Crime Stoppers was they knew that I'd found stuff out, and we had emails from the solicitor, which really made them look bad. It made them look really bad, because when I sent them to Lord Ashcroft, he must have gone, oh. And that's really had a big effect on them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, carry on.
We've got some more here if you're ready. We're running
Yeah.
out of time, so
Yeah, we
let's
are.
get through these. Enna Cousins. Hi, Enna. Nice to see you in the chat. I think it might be your first time. She says that Psychopolitics by Byung-Chul Han is a brilliant book explaining how society is now built around data collection to the point that even our subconscious actions can be predicted.
Well, I think the idea is unpredictability.
Yeah.
That thing. I mean, none of this kind of surveillance or these kind of hierarchical organizations is unpredictability. What it revolves around, we found this out a long time ago when I was at the People's Voice. We were being attacked or monitored and attacked, and usual ad hominem stuff. The thing is that the subversives who work against you if you're trying to get something out there work in a very hierarchical structure, so they can't deviate from it, and they can't use humor, which is ironically one of it's rule 5 of Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. Humor is basically a man's best weapon, but they don't use humor because they can't, because it's ambiguous and it's a grey area. So what they have to do is draw you out into conflict, or they use psychological pressure. And all of these things, once you identify them, they're absolutely blatantly obvious. And I did loads of research into this. And that's why I've done a lot of stuff on the years about things like the 7-7 Brigade. You know, I mean, it's just stupid that the intelligence services are unable to actually be flexible and move with the times or anything. That they're actually totally inflexible, which is why I don't think a lot of this predictive stuff can work, because all you have to find out is how they monitor things and how you're expected to act, and just do the opposite.
Yep. Okay.
And that's kind of fun as well, I think. You know, I think we need to have some fun, and I think that is a fun aspect to it. Unpredictability is funny.
Absolutely.
I've always found it funny.
Keeps everyone on their toes.
Yeah.
Right, we've got 1.5 minutes, and Mithrin seems to think that you might have missed the point. He was actually saying that individual bobbies are phoning in details and collecting the rewards.
Oh, I thought that's what he meant, but I lost a little bit of that, because it was yes. No, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me either. I'm going to finish up with the chat tonight, because I've not really got anything from the second half. If there's anything there that is important that you want Mark asked, then please repost it, and I'll get it to him after the show. We'll get back to it another time. But this quote here from Babushka posted it. The quote is from Chris Hedges. Now we live in a nation where doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, governments destroy freedom, the press destroys information, religion destroys morals, and our banks destroy the economy. I think that's pretty much spot on.
Yeah, that's what they're there for. That is the system. That is how it works and how it's meant to work, and it's working pretty well for the people who are benefiting from it. There's no doubt about that. But here's a little quote from the ESRI site. This is not either human analysis or artificial intelligence. It's got to be some combination of the two. That's from Mike Rogers, Director of the National Security Agency and Commander of US Cyber Command.
Wow.
And these are Crimestoppers partners.
Quality, isn't it?
So it's quality. It's fantastic, isn't it?
As they say, you couldn't make it up.
No. I think Jumbo and Bodger need retraining, and they're going to be working for ESRI next week. So, in conclusion, I would say that jolly good show, and thanks, Tony, you're top chap, and thanks to everyone out there, and we'll see you all at 7-7 Brigade, sharp tomorrow morning in Berkshire, for a little bit of internet trolling.
Cheers, Mark. Brilliant information. Thanks to everyone for listening, especially those that contribute in the chat. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, Tony.
Reversal of the poles in the passage of time.